Anjana Lama Mahat was born in 1996 in the scenic town of Hetauda, Nepal, where she spent her childhood. From a young age, her vibrant personality and natural ability to connect with others made her a beloved figure in her community. Those who met her were instantly drawn to her warmth and unique charm, leaving an unforgettable impression. Fast forward to her 11th grade, Anjana crossed paths with Prajwal Mahat through a mutual friend. What began as a casual introduction quickly flourished into a deep and meaningful connection. But like many love stories, theirs wasn't without obstacles. In Nepal, traditional societal expectations, especially the ones tied to the caste system, posed a significant challenge. Both Anjana and Prajwal were keenly aware that their families would struggle to accept their relationship. After 2 years of being together and recognizing that family approval might never come, they made a bold and life-changing choice. They decided to elope. Prajwal's elder brother emerged as an essential pillar of support, helping them navigate this transformative moment. With his guidance, they began their new chapter as a married couple, returning to the family home to start their life together. Interestingly, before their wedding, Anjana had already met Prajwal's parents, who lived in the Daulati area of Lalitpur. Her kind-hearted demeanor immediately won them over. In the early days of their marriage, Anjana experienced nothing but love and acceptance from Prajwal's family. Over time, they not only embraced her decision, but also entrusted her with the care of her youngest sibling, who moved in with her to pursue better educational opportunity. Life with her new family followed a comforting but structured rhythm. The house was mostly quiet during the day, with everyone immersed in their responsibilities, but the evenings were set aside for quality family time. Amidst this routine, Anjana, driven by her ambition and love for beauty and fashion, decided to carve out her own space. She opened a small beauty salon near her home and even dabbled in modeling. Both ventures brought her a sense of fulfillment and independence, and to her relief, Prajwal's family wholeheartedly supported her pursuits. But as her marriage reached its second year, the dynamics within the household began to shift. The once warm and welcoming atmosphere cooled noticeably. Her mother-in-law and sisters-in-law became distant, treating her less like a family member and more like an outsider. The growing distance slowly strained the harmony within the home. Anjana expressed her concerns to both her husband and her in-laws, hoping to mend the cracks in their relationships. But despite her efforts, no meaningful resolution emerged. Still, her love and commitment to her marriage never wavered. Anjana chose patience and perseverance, clinging to the hope that the joy and togetherness they once shared would return. Her determination to uphold the bond with Prajwal became her strength, guiding her through the challenges with courage and resilience. On May 9, 2019, just before noon, Anjana's mother received a phone call that would change her life forever. On the line was Anjana's mother-in-law, her voice panicked and distressed, urging them to come home immediately, saying there had been a terrible accident. Struggling to stay composed, Anjana's mother immediately called her other daughter, her voice trembling with fear. Meanwhile, Anjana's father frantically reached out to his son-in-law Prajwal, hoping to make sense of the situation. Prajwal confirmed the worst, something horrible had happened, and urged them to get to Kathmandu as quickly as possible. The family raced toward the city, their hearts pounding with fear and uncertainty. Along the way, they repeatedly called Anjana's in-laws, desperate for any shred of information, but their questions were met with vague, evasive responses. When they finally arrived late that night, they were greeted by a grim crowd gathered outside the house. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with tension and sorrow. As they entered, the first people they saw were Anjana's youngest sibling and her husband, Prajwal, both overcome with emotion, tears streaming down their faces. The weight of the unknown grew heavier as the family moved deeper into the house. bracing themselves for what they might learn. A police officer soon approached Anjana's father and guided him to her bedroom. What he saw there would scar him for the rest of his life. Anjana's body had been savagely mutilated. Her upper torso was on the bed, while her lower body lay crumpled on the floor. Her neck was nearly severed and at least 20 stab wounds covered her body. Her hands and head bore deep gashes, stark evidence of her desperate attempt to fight back. The wounds on her throat were especially horrifying, a chilling display of sheer brutality. As the family grappled with their crushing grief, they demanded answers. Who could commit such an unthinkable crime? The police then made a shocking announcement. Anjana's own brother-in-law, Ujwal, was the perpetrator. The revelation left the family in utter disbelief. How could someone they knew unleash such unimaginable violence? Their sorrow quickly turned to suspicion. Anjana had recently expressed fear of her in-laws, leaving her family convinced that others in the household were involved. Despite their pleas for a deeper investigation, the police dismissed their concerns. Only Ujwal was charged, and the rest of the family was released. Anjana's family was left grappling with countless unanswered questions, heartbroken and burdened by a profound sense of injustice. Their grief, their disbelief, and their search for the truth would continue to haunt them for the rest of their lives. This horrifying crime captured the attention of the media and social platforms almost instantly. Headlines everywhere detailed the gruesome murder revolving around one haunting question: why did Ujwal kill Anjana? What could drive someone to commit such a brutal and heartless act? The police acted quickly, bringing Ujwal in for questioning. It wasn't long before he broke down, confessing and revealing the shocking and tragic details of that day. On the day of the murder, only 3 people were home: Anjana, her mother-in-law, and Ujwal. Standing on the terrace, Ujwal closely watched Anjana, waiting for what he believed was the perfect moment to strike. Typically, Anjana kept her room locked from the inside, but on this particular day, she hadn't. Seeing his opportunity, Ujwal entered her room with a knife and carried out his horrific attack. Anjana, weakened by severe blood loss, collapsed onto the bed, unconscious. At first, Ujwal thought about leaving her, but the fear that she might regain consciousness and call for help consumed him. Driven by anger and desperation, he went back into the room and repeatedly stabbed her. The brutality of the attack suggested it was fueled by a deeply personal hatred. After the murder, visibly shaken and exhausted, Ujwal went to his mother and confessed, "I killed Anjana. Please call the police." In utter disbelief, his family immediately took action, not to seek justice but to protect him. They claimed he was mentally unstable and suffering from severe depression, sparing no expense on top lawyers in an attempt to reduce his culpability. However, Ujwal's own admissions unveiled a far darker reality. He confessed that he had been planning Anjana's murder for 2 to 3 years. When asked why he committed such a horrific act, his response was chilling. From the start, Ujwal harbored a deep resentment toward Anjana. He struggled to accept her. Her different caste, her strong-willed nature, and her intelligence made him feel inadequate. Her modeling career, her clothing choices, and the admiration she received from others only deepened his jealousy and insecurity. Adding fuel to the fire, his wife often spoke poorly about Anjana, feeding his resentment. The breaking point came when Ujwal learned of Anjana and her husband Prajwal's plans to move to Canada. For him, their leaving would have meant years of plotting wasted. Determined to act before that could happen, he carried out his twisted plan. Prajwal, overwhelmed with grief and shock, reflected on his brother's actions. "I never knew he carried so much hatred and anger. To me, he always seemed happy and kind," he shared. But questions remained. If Ujwal had been struggling with mental illness, where was the evidence? The medical records? The prescriptions? Why hadn't his family ever mentioned it before? Despite the overwhelming evidence against Ujwal, his family fought tirelessly to defend him. Meanwhile, Anjana's loved ones, along with a vast network of family and friends, stood beside Prajwal, determined to fight for justice. Protests erupted and social media was flooded with messages demanding accountability. The public united in support of Anjana, sharing outrage and solidarity. After a grueling 2-year legal battle, during which Anjana's family was forced to relive their pain repeatedly, justice was finally served. Ujwal Mahat was found guilty of Anjana's murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Before we conclude this video, please be aware that the video on the left may be disturbing. It is recommended for adult viewing only. On the right, you'll find a playlist of videos that have been highly appreciated by our viewers.